So I completed opening all of the beads after about an hour. The video stopped recording after about 20 minutes, I believe. And I started recording my process in sorting these beads, and well, I thought I was recording and I was not. Clearly, after I got quite a few of the beads sorted, as you can see by how many are in the separate containers, I decided to sort them by color. And I decided, instead of going through and just having you watch me sort them while I talk about sorting them for however long this video was going to last, which ended up being 21 minutes and 42 seconds, I decided for this video I was going to explain, while I'm sorting in the background here, anxiety, OCD, and hoarding, and just give a little bit of information about my process here. Also, I'm still in my footy pajamas. It was the same evening. This actually took me all through the night and into the morning. I completed this at 5:30 in the morning. I finally went to sleep at 5:30. It's a little bit vulnerable showing this video because some of my clients do watch these videos where I'm going to post this, and you can see more of me in this video than in the other one. And I'm noticing that you can see the top of my head, which I'm realizing how uncomfortable I am with people seeing the top of my head like this. It's thinning. I'm noticing it's gray and thinning. I'm okay with the grays. I've been okay with the grays for a while. I'm not okay with the thinning, as it turns out. I'm also really, uncomfortable. Sitting in my zebra footy pajamas on my floor with my thin gray frizzy hair at 3 in the morning. One of the things that I promised myself that I was going to do when I did this channel with my 19 subscribers right now, I am far from YouTube famous, which is not why I did this. I don't want to be famous on this channel. Is I'm not going to edit these things out. I want it to be real. I want it to be genuine. I'm not going to go crazy trying to make it not real. So this is about as real as it gets, folks. So enough about that and my insecurities. Therapists have insecurities too, and there are mine. It's just some of mine. So I wanted to talk about hoarding, because that's what this is about. I did gain permission from my client. I wanted to post just a little bit about that. I gained permission from my client to post more about this situation. Of course, I'm not going to give identifying information, but I know that, there is a situation that exists here that, let's say someone notices these beads, like they recognize these specific beads, and we're like, oh, they came from so-and-so's house. I recognize those beads. Or my client let someone know, hey, I gave those beads to my therapist and she's going to make a mannequin. And they're watching this. So in those situations, her identity could be known. And she did give me permission to post, with the understanding that I can't guarantee that that won't happen. She wants to be able to help others. So she said as long as I let her see the videos, and of course. So hoarding is a type of, it's like a subtype of obsessive compulsive disorder, and obsessive compulsive disorder is a type of anxiety disorder. And many people that don't have anxiety don't understand anxiety. And even people that have anxiety don't understand OCD. And you guessed it, many people that have OCD don't understand hoarding. So this is pretty complex. So I'm going to give a little bit of information about the bigger picture here, but then more specific information about hoarding. Anxiety is not fear, and that is something I stress over and over again. Fear is an adaptive emotion. It keeps us safe and alive. Anxiety can kill us. However, I do want to say that there is anxiety that is healthy, and everybody experiences anxiety from time to time. Healthy anxiety is the type of anxiety that gets us motivated to complete a necessary project. Like, I have this thing for work that has to be done. I can't just not do it and never get that oomph, that motivation to just finish it because a deadline is nearing. We have to have a little bit of motivation to, at some point we have to go, crap, I gotta freaking do this. So we all experience anxiety from time to time. That doesn't mean you have an anxiety disorder. It becomes a disorder, and by the way, I hate that term. I hate the term disorder. I don't like pathologizing this stuff. But according to the DSM, which is another soapbox of mine, but according to the DSM, it's a disorder when it interferes with our social and occupational functioning. If we struggle with relationships, if we struggle with getting our work done, if we struggle with holding a job or excelling in our work because of it, then it's now, I guess, to put it most simply, billable to insurance so that we can get treatment paid for. But it's not fear. Fear is when there's an actual immediate threat. If someone comes into my office while I'm doing therapy, puts a gun to my head and says they're going to kill me, I'm going to experience their fear in that moment, and I'm either going to freeze, run, freeze, flee, or fight. Most likely it's going to be freeze, because if I try to fight, this person's going to win. I'm not equipped in that moment. I'm not doing therapy, planning on having a gunfight in that very moment. And if I try to fight, the shooter's going to win. And if I try to run, where am I going to go? Right? So I'm probably going to freeze. That's my best bet for staying safe. And I don't really get to choose that. My nervous system chooses that for me. That's not a conscious decision, really. And that's a whole other story that I can talk about in a different video, about when we freeze, when people say, I didn't do anything, I just sat there, and they get mad at themselves for just standing there and not trying to fight and not trying to run away. That's not a choice that we make. Our nervous system does the deciding there based on what's likely to keep us safest. But that's not anxiety. Anxiety is a what if. It's about a future perceived threat. It's not an actual threat. It's not actually going to be dangerous to our life. It's not happening now. So that's the important difference. Those are the important differences. Even if it's an actual threat to our life, it's not happening now. And so therefore, we can still probably do something about that. More like fear, because it actually could hurt us, but it's not happening now. So those are the differences. Obsessive compulsive disorder includes obsessions and compulsions. And obsessions are uncontrollable, recurrent thoughts, usually about bad things happening, unwanted things that might happen. And compulsions are uncontrollable, recurrent behaviors. These urges to repeat these behaviors over and over and over again to prevent this unwanted event from happening. And these behaviors really can't prevent this unwanted behavior from happening usually, but in this person's mind, they can. So they do these behaviors over and over again in hopes it'll prevent this unwanted thing from happening that really might not ever happen anyways. You know, if I count so many times, a plane won't come falling out of the sky and crash into my house type thing. But usually the things aren't even related. And so it's irrational. Or they're they're not related and it won't ever happen, this bad thing, or they're not related and this person can't stop that thing from happening anyways because it's beyond their power. So what is hoarding? Hoarding is a persistent perceived need to save items, and they're usually of little or no value, and often it's garbage or even unsanitary stuff, like feces. It could even be that. And why? Well, a lot of times it's because they want to prevent this unwanted event. And the unwanted event is feeling unsafe. Or what if I get rid of it and I need it later? The unwanted event could be feeling shame, feeling wasteful. I threw this away when other people in the world don't have these things. We've been taught, at least I know I have been taught, to appreciate the things that have been given to me. And so maybe it was a gift that I've always hated, but by golly, I better appreciate it because someone worked hard and paid with their hard-earned money to go get me this present, and now I have to keep it till death do us part. Sometimes it's to, I'm going to save it and so that I can will it over to my family. I have stuff that I don't want to get rid of, not because I like it, but maybe my daughter or my granddaughter will want it after I die, right? Which is kind of how many people save their wedding dress for their daughter when they get married, and how many daughters actually wore their mother's wedding gown on their wedding? Really? I remember I was watching an episode of Hoarders, and I paused that episode because this woman wanted to keep everything from her wedding, and the person helping her go through her house, he said, "You have pictures of your wedding as a memento to remember your wedding. You don't need to keep everything from your wedding. You have pictures to remind you." And I thought, you know what? He's right. I paused that, and a lot of people are going to probably lose their mind when they hear this, but I paused that video or that episode, went to my closet, grabbed my wedding gown that still had a meatball stain down or sauce stain from when a meatball rolled down the front of my gown, and I threw that gown in the garbage. That gown moved with me. I moved that gown with me twice, from my apartment to my first house and my first house to my second. My daughter is not going to want that dress. I guarantee it. My daughter wore it one Halloween when she was a bride on Halloween. I wore it on Halloween. I wore it for my wedding. I wore it long for my wedding, a long time, up until the next day when, I wore it to Perkins, which was a restaurant that was open 24/7 after the wedding. It got its use, and I threw it away. And so the insight for people, back to hoarding, people usually have very poor insight about their hoarding and OCD, especially with hoarding, though. They usually don't even realize how bad the problem is. Sometimes they say, I might have a problem hoarding. You might, really? You're climbing over stuff that should be in a sewage facility. Hoarding is also due to trying to fill a void in their life, usually caused by the loss of a loved one. And so they try to fill that void with stuff. Sometimes they try to fill that void with animals. And so they hoard animals. They collect animals, cats and dogs. I have so much compassion for this. I can't be in a house that is hoarded. When years ago I was in EMT and I had to do CPR on somebody in a hoarded house. I've been in many houses that were hoarded as an EMT, but I remember one in particular, and I was doing CPR on a man in the hallway, and it took like 20 minutes for us to clear the door in front of the door just so we can get him out and get him into the ambulance to get him to the hospital. But trying to find a spot to move this man to and have room to work on him, it was dangerous. It was sad. I found myself feeling angry about it. But I have so much compassion for it, for the people who have this issue. And I have a lot of compassion for my client. Her mother passed away, and my compassion is now my client has to deal with going through this. And a lot of people would say, you know what, burn the place down. Why are you going through it? But here's the thing, guys. There's important documents in this house. You know, it's people from the outside say these things so ignorantly, and I don't mean that to be rude. Ignorant meaning you just don't know what you're saying when you haven't lived it. There's important stuff in this house. There's documents, but there's also stuff from my client's childhood that she might want. But she's got to go through it, and the pain of going through it. You know, I want to cry as I'm thinking about this right now. She's so brave. She's so brave. And while she went through it, she found these buttons, and she had to work really, really hard to not keep them. She's working hard to not entertain her own. I think a lot of us, I know I have hoarding tendencies. My mother had hoarding tendencies, and my client's working hard to overcome her hoarding tendencies. I think a lot of people in this culture have hoarding tendencies. We have abundance, right? We have abundance, but also my grandmother, my grandmother lived through the Depression, and she used to, I mean, if you go anywhere and you want more pastries at an event, it was always if we went anywhere and you wanted more pastries, it was funny, we would say, check old ladies' purses, because anyone that lived through the Depression, they would put the pastries in their purses to take home. My grandmother would put little creamers from restaurants, from the tables at restaurants, in her purses and take them home. Little packets of everything, packets of ketchup, and so whether you've lived through the Depression or whether you live in abundance, we're pack rats, I think. So my hope is that my client, doing this mannequin, will not only help my client heal, but will also help spread the word, kind of, about doing these videos and posting them. Will spread the word about hoarding, and will continue to destigmatize and spread awareness about mental health in general, anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, and hoarding. Let's abolish the stigma. Let's continue to be mental health advocates and spread compassion more than anything. I'm really going to do my best to honor my client in this mannequin, and I am so looking forward to the finished product. And I hope this is a fun experience for everyone who watches me along the way. And hopefully my hair won't thin more during the process. I promise to try and get some other outfits on. And we're at about 20 minutes and 21 seconds, so I'm going to stop here. And yeah, the sorting is about halfway done at this point. Take care, folks. Be well.